The Dark Compartment by Bernard Capes. I remember once, when hunting for a seat in a crowded train, finding unexpectedly an empty compartment, the door of which, when I came to try it, was locked. Holding on to the handle, I looked about for the guard, but at that moment another hurrying passenger halted beside me, peered over my shoulder into the carriage, and went quickly away. Something in the man's manner striking me, I also investigated, and saw that the floor of the compartment was sprinkled thick with sawdust. Immediately I let go of the handle and hastened to find a seat elsewhere. There cannot be many engines, after all, which do not trail the ghosts of past tragedies in their wake. That was an experience unforeseen enough to give one a sharp little qualm, but I would not willingly exchange it for Manby's. In his case, but let him tell his own story. The oddest thing happened to me, let me tell you. I had been visiting the old Hampshire Abbey town, and a run thence of 30 minutes by rail would take me to the next stopping place on my itinerary. There were barracks and a cathedral, a public school and a jail, not to speak of cosy hotels. It was a dark November evening and soppingly wet, so that, dawdling over my tea-time comforts at the inn, I came near, in the end, to missing my train altogether. It was actually starting when I gained the platform, and I had to make a dash for it and scramble into the first compartment that was offered. The light in the roof burned so dim that, what with that and the momentary flurry of my entrance, I did not recognise at once whether I were alone or had broken into company. As my eyes, however, accustomed themselves to the obscurity, I saw that there were 2 men sitting together opposite me at the further end of the compartment. The lamp, as I say, was so down, a mere night-light in suggestion, that it was difficult to distinguish the character of my travelling companions. Moreover, as one of them seemed thickly bearded, and the other wore a dark felt hat slouched over his eyes, their faces, or the section of them visible to me, appeared nothing but featureless white maps, hung up, as it were, in the gloom. The 2 sat very quiet, close together, but without exchanging the least communication that I could see, and presently, from under cover of my own hat-brim, I took to scrutinising the silent shapes. I was the more emboldened to that inquisition by the utter indifference with which they had accepted my abrupt invasion. They seemed now even to be wholly unconscious of my presence. The deathliness of that disregard, rigid and motionless, the huddled cohesion of the twin shadows with those blots of white representing their faces, affected me strangely and uneasily after a while. I wanted one or the other of them to stir, to resolve himself into a detached human entity, and quite suddenly I had my wish. How it happened I don't know, but there came a sort of local shifting of the gloom, a sense of a quick gleam in its midst, and in that moment I understood. The man with the slouched hat had handcuffs on his wrists, and he was travelling in the charge of a prison warder. Almost as I realised the truth, the prisoner began to speak. "I'm sick. I want air." I say he spoke, and I might say the other answered. A sense of those words anyhow throbbed in my brain, and they had their instant corollary in his rising and standing at the window, unopposed. I felt the rush of wet air and saw the wing-like filling of the dark Inverness cape he wore. And then suddenly there was a tiny snap, and he went out of the window like a flying crow. I saw the warder snatch at him and follow the way he had gone, pulled off his feet by the wrench and jerk. And there was I alone in the dark compartment, with only the window guard, broken and bent askew, to witness to the stunning tragedy which had passed in a moment before my eyes. Even as I leapt to my feet, I grasped what had happened. Under cover of his cloak and the roar of wheels and train, the prisoner, though manacled, had managed rapidly to file through the bar to breaking point. I tore at the alarm communication cord and stood gasping and shaken. Almost against my expectation, the train slowed down within a few seconds and came to a stop. I put my head out of the window on my side and beckoned frantically to the shape I saw beating towards me along the blown trackside. The guard came below, looking up with the staring, rather combative expression of the official summoned against his own better faith. "What is it? For God's sake, come here. 2 men have just gone out the window." He climbed grudgingly to the footboard and so into the carriage. "Yes, sir," he said. "Where were they sitting?" His cool, incredulous tone maddened me. "There, by that open window," I said. "Isn't it plain enough?" He crossed the carriage, pressed his hand on the seat, and turned to me again. "That won't do. No one's been sitting here. The cushion's cold. Feel for yourself." "God in heaven, man," I cried. "Do you take me to be mad? Or drunk? They sat there, I tell you, a warder and his charge, and the prisoner stood up on some pretext and went clean out, dragging the other after him. There's the broken window rail to witness." "Is there?" He had had his back to it, but moved now, just glancing over his shoulder so that I might see. And there was the window rail, whole and sound, and the window itself closed. Presently, after I don't know what brief interval, I found myself giggling hysterically. "Look here," I said. "I think I'll change my carriage." "I would," said the guard, "if I were you." Both his tone and his look were odd, but he took down my name and address with an intimation that the minimum penalty was £5. It was, on the face of it, a serious offence, you will agree. Yet, curiously, I received no summons from the company, nor ever heard another word on the matter.